This is the second part of solving proportions. So in the first video in pit stop A, we were setting up the proportion, and now in pit stop B, we're solving the proportion. So we're using the same set of notes, but we're just completing it now. So if I open this up, you can see we've already set up the proportions in an earlier part. If you didn't do this video first, you need to go back and watch it so that you already have your proportions set up, because we're not going to take the time to do that again in this part. So now that we have our proportions set up, how do we solve? How do we figure out what this x is going to be? To solve a proportion, we need to remember something. In a proportion, if the ratios are equivalent, by saying that they're equal, you're saying that they're equivalent, then the cross products are equal. All right, and by cross products, product means a multiplication. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to be multiplying across, and I'm saying that those are equal if it's a proportion. So in order to solve a proportion, you have basically 4 steps. The first thing you do is set up your word ratio. That we did in an earlier video, and that's when we compared the words. Then you draw your 4. What did we draw? 4 boxes. After you draw your 4 boxes, you fill them in. Again, this is the part we've already done. We did the word ratio, the 4 boxes, and we filled them in. All right, after you do that, you're going to be solving the proportion. The first thing you do is circle the diagonal numbers. So by diagonal, okay, I'm going to be talking about the numbers that are diagonally across from each other. Across, that's where the cross part comes, in cross products. So I'm going to circle those. And we call that a baseball bat because it's kind of the long part of the problem. And then you're going to, after you circle them, those are the numbers you're going to multiply. We call it cross multiply. And then the last step for solving is after you cross multiply, you divide. And you're going to divide by the number that you didn't circle. So remember, in the proportion, there were 3 numbers total. Okay, the 4th one is the one we're looking for. So you're going to be multiplying 2 of them and then dividing by the 3rd one. So we call that one the baseball. Some people, that helps them remember. If it doesn't help you, don't worry about it. All right, so if I go back in this first example, since I've completed the first 2 steps, I'm going to go on to step 3, which is to circle the diagonal numbers. So the 2 numbers that are diagonal from each other are the 15 and the 40. These are diagonal as well, but they're not 2 numbers. So this is my baseball bat. These are the ones I multiply. So I'm going to do 15 times 40. 0 times 5 is 0. 0 times 1 is 0. I start with the 0. 5 times 4 is 20. Carry your 2. 4 times 1 is 4 plus 2 is 6. When I add these up, I get 600. All right. After I multiply, step 4 is to divide by the number not circled. All right. So what number did I not circle? That's the 6. That's what I'm going to divide by. So over here, 600 goes inside. I'm dividing by the 6. 6 will go into 6 once. And then I have these zeros, so I still have to divide. 6 will go into 0 0 times. And then if I bring down the next 0, 6 will go into 0 0 times again. So 600 divided by 6 is 100. So what have I said? I've said that x, this missing number here, is equal to 100. And they were 100 what? Well, if I go back and look at my words, all right, I can see that the x went with tape players. So I'm answering the question. How many tape players can they make in a 40-hour work week? Okay, and so I just said that that was, 100 tape players. All right, sorry, I drew my box too small. All right, number 2. First step after you set it up is to go ahead and multiply with the numbers that are diagonal from one another. So which numbers are diagonal? The 17 and the 5. So that's my baseball bat. Circle those. Those are what I multiply. 5 times 7 is 35. Carry your 3. 5 times 1 is 5 plus 3 is 8. After I multiply, I divide by the number I didn't circle. That would be the 2. 2 will go into 8 4 times. Subtract 8. Bring down the 5. 2 will go into 5 2 times. That's 4. When I subtract 4, I get 1. Since I have a remainder, I have to keep going. Remember, we don't do remainders in 6th grade anymore. So I add a decimal, bring it up, and then I can add a 0 and bring it down. So now I'm dividing 2 into 10. I'll go 5 times. 5 times 2 is 10, and then I'm done. All right, so my answer here, I got 42.5, and that is what I'm going to say is equal to x. So x equals 42.5. And then I could answer the question, 42.5 what? Well, the question was how many hours does she practice in 5 weeks? So, and I can see x is here with hours. So this is 42.5 hours. And it's important to identify what you're solving for because you're talking about 2 different types of things. So we want to make sure we've answered the question. All right, and number 3, I'm looking for the diagonal numbers. So this time, that would be the 12 and the 1. 1 times 12, 12 times 1 is 12. After you multiply, you do what? You divide by what you haven't used. That 3rd number here, that's our baseball. So we're going to divide 2 into 12. It'll go 6 times. So now I can say x is equal to 6, x or whatever letter you used. 6 what? That's down here, so it must be 6 hours. Okay, and the question I'm answering, how many hours would it take to get a foot of rainfall? 6 hours. Number 4, the Millers drove 105 miles on 4 gallons of gas at this rate. How many miles can they expect to drive on 4 gallons of gas? Or sorry, 6 gallons of gas. So I'm going to look, since it's set up for my diagonal numbers, that's the 105 and the 6. And that's what I'm going to multiply, 105 times 6. 6 times 5 is 30, carry your 3. 6 times 0 is 0 plus 3 is 3. 6 times 1 is 6. All right, am I done? Nope, I still have to divide by this last number, this 4. I'm dividing 4 into 630. 4 will go into 6 once. When I subtract, I get 2. Bring down the 3. 4 going to 23 5 times. 5 times 4 is 20. Subtract. I get 3. Bring down the 0. 4 going to 30. 7. 7 times 4 is 28. When I subtract 28, I get 2. All right, I have a remainder. I don't do remainders. Add a decimal, bring it up. Add a 0, bring it down. Sorry, there's not a lot of room. 4 will go into 20 5 times, and then I'm done. All right, so my answer here is 157.5. Again, I want to know what that is. 157.5 what? Well, if I look at my word ratio, I can see that it's miles. So this is how far they're going to drive on their 6 gallons. And then in the last one, number 5, I'm going to, is this still recording? Yeah, it is. Okay, sorry guys. My phone was telling me it's in low power mode. Okay, on her last benchmark test, Norma's ratio of correct to incorrect was 3 to 1. If there were 36 questions on the test, how many did she get right? Okay, so I've already set it up. So my step now is to multiply diagonally. So that would be these 2 numbers here that are across. 36 times 3. I can write these also in any order, so I like to have my bigger number on top when I multiply. 3 times 6 is 18, carry your 1. 3 times 3 is 9, plus 1 is 10. And then I still need to divide by that last number, 4. So I'm going to divide 4 into 108. 4 are going to 10 twice, that's 8. When I subtract, I get 2, bring down the 8. 4 are going to 28 7 times, and then I can stop because I have no remainder. All right, so what did I find? X is equal to 27. And that's 27 what? Correct answers. All right, so again, as a review, when you're solving a proportion problem, your first step is going to be to write your word ratio. Your second step is going to be to draw your 4 boxes and fill them in. After that's set up, that's kind of the hard part. Then you do cross multiplication. So you're going to multiply whatever's diagonal, circle this, and multiply those 2 numbers. And then divide by that number you haven't used yet. And then whatever you get when you divide is your final answer. Okay, that's solving proportions. I'll see you soon.